Hi everyone, thank you for tuning in to Smarter Building Podcast powered by Symetri. My name is Richard Brayshaw and I'm the Construction Business Area Director at Symetri. I host the podcast along with my colleague Nicole with the intention of helping everyone involved in the design, construction and ongoing operation process of a building keep up to date with the evolving digital landscape as client demands for smarter and more sustainable buildings grow. Every month we chat with industry experts around best practice, new legislation, trends and technology. And one of our hot topics in the industry right now is the consolidation of technology and how that's best utilised. On today's show, I'm joined by Jim Lynch, Senior Vice President and General Manager of Autodesk Construction Solutions. It's great to have you, Jim. Thanks for jumping on and thanks for joining us.
Hello, Richard. It's great to be here, and thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to our discussion today.
Thank you. Yeah, you're our first person on from the US. We've got a few more lined up, but yeah, you're the first person to join us from the US. So it'd be great to have some perspective from across the pond, I guess, and on a worldwide basis.
Excellent. Well, let's hope I set the stage for a good future US guest.
I'm sure you'll set the bar very high, Jim. I'm sure you'll set very high. I'm keen to pick your brains regarding sort of the evolution of the construction industry, current challenges, and the creation of tech platforms to overcome those challenges. But before we get going, it'd be great to hear a little bit more about you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and your interests, and maybe where you are today, I guess.
Yeah. Well, so I'm calling in today from Boston, Massachusetts. Beautiful city. I'm sure many of your listeners have visited Boston. As you may know, by the way, your Prince and Princess are here this week, driving a really important initiative around sustainability. And maybe we'll talk about sustainability later, so we can loop that in. But yeah, so listen. I'm the Senior Vice President and General Manager, as you mentioned, of Autodesk Construction Solutions. I've actually been with Autodesk for over 25 years. I actually started with Autodesk on the West Coast in Portland, Oregon. I was working on a product in the manufacturing division for Autodesk called Inventor. So we were building the next generation mechanical design tool for Autodesk. And I did that for about 3 years, and then Autodesk actually did an acquisition back here on the East Coast, and asked me if I would be interested in coming back home. I originally from the Boston area. Asked me if I would be interested in returning to New England or to the Boston area with my family to integrate that acquisition in. And that acquisition was actually Autodesk really a first step into verticalization around the architecture, engineering, and construction, or AEC industry. To date, before that, Autodesk, of course, had been selling technology into AEC, but it was primarily AutoCAD. And so this acquisition of a company called Sofdesk actually built solutions focused on AEC on top of AutoCAD. So I integrated that in. I was part of the team that acquired Revit. I led the Revit organization for many years. I was part of the team that helped establish BIM, or Building Information Modeling, as a household name. Over the years, I've had many different roles relative to AEC. I led marketing for AEC for about 6 years. As I mentioned, I led the Revit product group for several years. Most recently, over the past 5 years, I have been in my current role, which is leading the ACS, or Autodesk Construction Solutions organization. And of course, our objective is, really focused 150% on the construction space, really helping to establish Autodesk not just in the design piece of AEC, which we're well established and have that market leadership position, but really establish us as leaders in the construction space, both in the pre-construction piece and also in the, what happens on the job site, that project management piece. So I've been doing that for the last 5 years, and I know that will be the majority of our discussion today. Before that, my background is I went to school for computer science. I have a degree in computer science. I started out as a programmer many years ago. Today, they don't let me near any software. Yeah, so that's me. And as I said, I'm calling in from Boston today.
Oh, fantastic! No, you clearly part of the furniture these days at Autodesk, I guess, having sort of taken a few hats along the way as well.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. It's a great company.
And in terms of so with your knowledge around ACS and the AEC sector, it'd be interesting to get your views on just to start with the construction industry. It's taken a lot of bad press, I'd say, over the last few years in terms of productivity gains. We always see those graphs of manufacturing going like this and construction going like this in terms of
Yeah.
productivity. I feel as if the market's changed quite considerably in the last 5 years, but it'd be good to get your view on when you think it changed, if you think it's changed, and how aggressively you think this digitization really is in the construction sector now.
Yeah, it's a great question, Richard, and I share your perspective 150%. I mean, I think, 5 years ago, I certainly used to show, and others in the industry would show the McKinsey study that shows, productivity or the use of digital technology in manufacturing going that way, and in all other industries, going up, and except for construction. And in fact, construction, that McKinsey study showed construction was the least adopted other than hunting and fishing. So we only beat out hunting and fishing when it comes to technology. I don't show that graph anymore. I think that's outdated. I think it's wrong. Listen, we have a long way to go in the industry, but I've been super impressed to see how this industry has embraced and adopted and driven technology over the last several years, certainly over the last 5 years. And it's interesting because I often reflect back to the early days of Revit and the early days of BIM. And at the time we were at the forefront of helping the industry find a new way of working, helping architects and engineers in particular find a new way to imagine and to design. And it was a slow start. There was a hesitancy to embrace that technology. It took several years. Now, of course, they were already using technology, but this was moving to a new technology. If I compare that to what's happened in construction over the last 5 years, the rate at which our customers and the industry is adopting and embracing technology, I think it's going faster than what we saw when we were moving from traditional 2D ways of working in architecture and engineering design to 3D and BIM. So, I think, as I say, we still have a long ways to go, and I think we have a long ways to go in terms of, the broader industry adopting, but also the technology providers, Autodesk included, still have a long way to go to make sure that our customers and that the industry can drive more predictability, drive more safety, and drive more sustainability.
I think you're 100% right. I think it's responsibility of everybody, and that's probably something we'll touch on again, is this collaborative involvement from everybody involved in the process, consultants, technology providers included, and all pulling in the same direction rather than always looking at what's in it for us kind of behavior. In terms of, obviously in your role, you would speak to a lot of contractors, a lot of the biggest construction companies in the US, but also around the world.
Yep.
What's the biggest challenge that these guys are facing, and what's the most common issue you come across at the moment?
Yeah, so I do spend a great deal of time, Richard, visiting our customers, visiting job sites. It's one of my favorite parts of my job because I think it's when you're on those job sites, when you're sitting with customers, that's when you really experience the challenges that they have. I would say the themes that are consistent globally, I would say first and foremost is labor. Everybody is struggling to find labor. I was in Europe about a month ago on a customer tour, and this idea that, hey, we're having to turn down work because we can't get the workers to deliver the projects. It's a very common theme. I hear it here in the U.S. all the time. The other is around, the logistics around materials, just, getting materials in a timely fashion so that they can deliver projects on time. That too is a global challenge, very consistent. And then the third piece is just the prices, the cost of materials is, making it more challenging for our global customers, to be able to deliver projects profitably, which of course, as you know, is a challenge of this industry in general. But I would say, it really comes down to labor, it comes down to material and material logistics, and then costs. Those are three themes that, I hear consistently.
And what's the solution to the labor shortage?
Well, listen,
Just solve that for us quick. Just solve that for us quickly, Jim. And then
yeah, well, people talk about robotics, and there's a love-hate relationship with robotics because some people say, well, wait a second, if you bring more robots, to the job site, you're going to eliminate the need for people. I don't see that. I think, by the way, and I think we're very early in terms of robotics on the job site, but I do think there is a role to play there. I do think this idea of robot-assisted construction, where robots can do, moving the materials on the job site, doing some of the quote-unquote heavy lifting. I think there's great promise there, and I think there's some early technology, but it has a long way to go. I do think technology, in a greater sense, can help. Won't solve the labor challenge, but I think it can help. If we can help make project teams on the job site more efficient, which we're doing, right, by making sure that they have the latest information, making sure they're not doing things twice. As you know, 30% of construction materials, on the job site end up being wasted. If we can help, that's because there's a lack of predictability and a lack of information. If we can arm the teams on the job site with the information they need to make the right decisions and to execute on the latest information, I think that will save and help the labor shortage. But I think it's a number of things. I think we also, technologists, and I think the industry, we have to encourage kids that are in school today to look at careers in construction. And we're starting to see an uptick in that, right? Because of the technology piece, right? Kids in school today understand the value of technology. They know how to use technology, whether it's gaming technology or collaboration technology. All those things. I think we have a role to play as technologists, but the industry does as well, to making sure that we're getting kids excited about a future in construction, because I think it is an exciting future.
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned, I think there's a shift in the type of kids who could be working in construction. It's probably becoming less and less physical and more about how you control and manage. It's a bit of a
100%. Yeah, and I think the other thing that draws, can help draw the younger generation into this industry is this idea of a sustainable future. That, hey, be part of the team that is helping to make this industry that is, quite unsustainable today, more sustainable. So I think all those things can help encourage the future construction teams of the future, get them excited today.
You mentioned that the sustainability level isn't great in construction at the moment. How do you? So you think we're sort of quite low in terms of the adoption of sustainable practices and materials at the moment. How do you think we can move from where we are to a better place?
Yeah, I think we have to. I think, if you look at some of the statistics, the built square footage is estimated to double by 2060. If we keep going at the rate we're going, this industry cannot deliver on what's needed in the future. We won't be able to deliver the schools, the homes, the infrastructure, the hospitals, the data centers that will be required, to support the population explosion expected over the next 20 to 30 years. So we have to do something different. At the same time, we all know the statistics. About 20% of all greenhouse gas emissions are driven by, come from the construction industry or the built environment. 40% of the energy and process related emissions come from construction. I talked about the waste. So there's so much opportunity for improvement there. We all know the problem. It's figuring out what the solution is. And I think there are several things. First and foremost, there's been a lot of focus on, making sure we understand operational carbon emission, right? That is the emission that's created during the operation of an asset. So we need to continue on that journey, and I think we're still early on that journey. But there's the whole, embodied carbon piece of it, which is really, the emissions generated by the materials during the construction process. And I think that's where we as an industry are in our infancy. There is technology out there. There's the EC3 technology, which is the embodied carbon construction carbon calculator technology. It's open source technology. We integrate with it, but we don't. We need more users. We need more customers. We need more of the industry embracing those tools. I think that's the start. Let's make sure we're really understanding the operational footprint. Let's make sure we're understanding the embodied carbon footprint, and that's a really great start. And I think if you look at the material providers, there are some amazing work being done and products being delivered that are much more sustainable and going into the buildings that our customers are building today. But I think it's a greenfield opportunity. And I mentioned earlier that your prince and princess are here in Boston this week. They arrived yesterday, and they're here, and I think it's really cool. They're here to kick off a project that they refer to as Earthshot, named after the John F. Kennedy moonshot initiative, back in the 60s, where we were committed to putting a man on the moon. So Earthshot is all about driving greater sustainability on the Earth. So they're here this week to talk about that program. Today they're visiting a company, an incubator, a startup incubator called Greentown Labs. And, I'm just super excited that we have leaders like that around the globe that are taking initiative. So we have a long way to go as an industry. A lot of it is continued education, and a lot of it is making sure that we have owners that are really demanding that the buildings that they're having built or having renovated are actually being done so in a sustainable and respectful way.
Yeah. I mean, I've looked at some of the tracking of carbon, in terms of the generation of the materials, the transportation of the materials, and it looks immensely complicated to calculate exactly what's gone into the building of an individual house or structure.
Absolutely.
So more power to anybody trying to get a handle on that and trying to use technology to capture it. In terms of any other challenges people are having with technology on the construction site, what's the most difficult thing people are facing? What are they trying to overcome when you get out on those sites?
Well, I think there's a couple of things, Richard. One, I would say is, they're really, this idea of getting teams that are working on project sites today to embrace the technology. Because, a number of our workers on the job sites today have been at it for a long time, have been going about it in a manual fashion. So getting them to embrace the idea of using digital technology is one challenge, but I think the industry is doing a really good job working to educate and to help their project teams embrace the technology. I think technology providers, Symetri, Autodesk, I think we're doing a good job. I think we have more work to do to help the industry, help our customers embrace the technology. But I think that's one. I think another big challenge that comes up a lot is getting the most out of the technology, and in particular, the data aspect of that. Our customers realize that with the use of digital technology, as they deploy and adopt more and more digital technology, they're amassing incredible amounts of information. And so a big challenge for the industry today is taking that information and turning that information into useful data where they can extract key insights, key learnings to drive better outcomes for future projects. That's a challenge I hear about all the time.
I was about to ask you about data, so that leads in beautifully to my next question. So as you mentioned, data is hugely valuable. It's the new gold, it's the new oil, it's the king, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And the ability to manage this, manipulate, provide those insights, as you say, is hugely powerful. Is this why Autodesk are looking to create a platform that stores, maintains, manages data right through the life cycle of a building rather than focusing on point solutions?
150%. That is exactly right, Richard. Because we believe, in many ways we're in a unique position at Autodesk, given our leadership in design and BIM, and given the work that we're doing on the back end, the operations and maintenance digital twin work that we're doing. And then of course the work we're doing in construction around pre-construction planning and job site execution. There is an extremely, extremely attractive amount of information that flows from design through planning, through the job site, out to operations and maintenance, and back. Of course, it's a two-way flow of information. And so, we believe the best way to deliver value on that information is by connecting and building all of these pieces on a common data platform, and that's exactly what we're doing. And I think, when I look at our global customers, one of the big differences I see between our North American customers, for example, and our European customers, our European customers are far ahead in terms of understanding the opportunity that data presents. And a lot of that is driven by what's happening in a number of countries across Europe. I was just, as I said, I was in Europe about a month ago. I spent a week in the London area visiting customers, and all the talk was on the Safety Act that that the government has rolled out. As a result of what happened back in 2017 or 2018, the Glenfell fire, which was a tragic fire. But unfortunately, it's events like that actually do drive change. And I think, listen, the UK government led the way with BIM standards. They really did. And there are still countries across the globe that are trying to emulate that and haven't quite got there. But I think the same thing's going to happen here with data. I think this idea that you need to be able to deliver a digital record of a project from start to finish is going to be incredibly compelling and important. And so we want to make sure that we're providing the technology to deliver on those data requirements. And so that's why we're building a platform and not just focused on point solutions along the way.
Okay. And is that also why the changes have been made to the licensing models at Autodesk to increase collaboration and involvement?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I'll be honest, we continue to experiment and explore with different business models for our customers. We want to make sure that we're providing our customers the opportunity to purchase software in a way that makes the most sense for them. So for some, that's project-based. For some, that's user-based. As we have we enable our customers, our general contractors, to purchase licenses and to share those licenses with teams outside of their company that are working on the project. So we're just trying to make sure that we're offering options for our customers to purchase and deploy software the way that works best for them.
Awesome. So you mentioned earlier you've got a bit of a background in manufacturing and obviously now in construction, which sort of leads nicely into modular construction. I don't know how prevalent that is in the US, but there's certainly we've had a podcast on this over here already, and it seems to be really exploding in the UK and across Europe. I think that there's a lot of modular builders springing up, but all the big guys seem to be opening factories and making sure they've got that market covered as well. Is that the case in the US too?
Yeah, it's a great point. By the way, this is a topic that I'm deeply passionate about. Given I joined Autodesk on the manufacturing side, and I think the industry has so much to gain by embracing and adopting manufacturing-based approaches to construction. I don't think that means everything has to go modular, but I think the idea of more prefabrication, more modular, whether it's aspects of a building or entire pods, I think there's huge opportunity. I would say that you just talked to it, Richard, but Europe is further ahead than we are here in the U.S. We've had some fits and starts. Everybody has probably heard of Katera, and they had this huge promise for modular construction, which they didn't deliver on. That we could do a separate podcast on that, lessons learned. But I mean, Europe is further ahead, as you said. The major contractors across Europe are opening factories. They're looking at ways that they're deploying approaches and methods that are more in line with manufacturing techniques than they are, traditional stick-built or traditional, construction. I'm excited for the future, and I think Europe is leading the way.
Yeah, I think it could be a massive step forward, and I think it could play massively into the sustainability piece as well. Waste out of modular build is so much lower than traditional on-site methodologies.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's just so much more predictability. When you're building in a controlled environment, you automatically take weather out of the equation. And I mentioned earlier that, approximately 30% of construction materials on the job site end up, as waste. And that does not happen to that degree, not even close to that degree when you start doing more of the construction in the factory, and then getting it out to the job site. Now that's not without its challenges either, right? It's okay, so I'm a contractor. I'm gonna build a factory. Where do I build that factory? If I'm building structures across Europe, and so and then just the mindset. I think the other thing is I think the owner community, and I think governments, in fact, and I think the UK government is active here and will continue to be active here. But I think owners have a role to play here as well. Pushing for sustainable outcomes, pushing for more predictability in the process, and I think that will ultimately help the industry.
Okay, and we've talked about sustainability as a big challenge. Are there any other big challenges that you see for construction organisations in the next few years that we should be looking to solve? Let's talk about together again in terms of contractors, tech suppliers, consultants. What should we be focused on? What are the challenges we should be focused on solving together to drive big efficiency gains or big cost savings?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've kind of talked about all these things. I think driving more sustainability throughout the process, not just in calculating the operational impact, but the embodied carbon impact. I think helping the industry see and experience more offsite construction, more prefabrication. I think there's a role for all of us to play there. And again, I think just helping our customers and helping the industry adopt and get the most out of their technology. And so, I think we just have a huge role to play there. And then, of course, the data piece is something, that we continually focus on and work on here, because there's so much to be learned with the data that our customers are capturing and creating every day. If you can use that data to predict issues and challenges on future projects before they happen, I mean, that just helps drive more predictability and quite frankly, safety in the process. So I think those are the things that we as technology providers have a role to play in helping the industry move forward.
And in terms of adoption, you've mentioned the challenges of some of the guys who've been in the industry for a few more years than others and picking up the technology. Do you think small wins, successes like you just talked about from using the data will perpetuate just more adoption of technology and accelerate the adoption of technology naturally? Or do you think there's something else we can be doing to drive technology into businesses a bit quicker?
Well, listen. I think the data, the wins with data, will help drive the use of technology more top down in these companies, right? If you're the CIO, the CTO, or the CFO even, and you're seeing the gains that you're getting, because you're able to use this data to better understand the state of a project or the state of your business, I think that's going to help drive it top down. But listen, the guy on the job site who's trying to get the project, delivered on time and trying to understand what his tasks are for the day and what may have changed, he probably cares less about the data, but what he cares about is get me that information and ensure that it is up to date. And so, I think we have to continue to educate on the data piece, but I think we also have to continue to educate on the value of the technology for the teams that are on the job site doing the work day in and day out.
Okay. Top down, bottom up.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Right. Yep.
I guess the other thing I was going to ask you about is the current world we live in, the economic conditions, the labour shortages you've mentioned. Do you think that makes spending money on technology harder, or do you think people just see the benefit and are going to take the plunge anyway? And as you say, with the labour shortages, maybe technology can pick up some of that slack.
I think if we continue to slip towards a global recession, and in some countries, they're kind of further along that path than others. But I think what you'll see, because one of the things we've noticed, a technology that we have here in North America, we haven't deployed it yet in Europe, is a tool called a product called Building Connected. And it allows you to bid on projects electronically. So we have really good visibility into to the bidding flow here in North America, and we really have not seen a slowdown in data, which says that's good news, right? Because our customers are still bidding on projects. That means projects are out there. Every customer I talk to, whether it's in Europe or in North America, they say they have a very strong backlog. So all those things are good and important for helping the industry weather any economic headwinds that they should encounter. I do think sometimes, well, in fact, we saw this, back in at 2008 during the last recession, that even though the industry was slowing down, we actually started to see an uptick in adoption of tools like Revit and our BIM technologies, because in some ways, as companies have a chance to breathe, they also have a chance to take a look at their use of technology, look at their processes, and make adjustments. So, unless things get really, really bad, Richard, I would expect that we'll continue to see a desire and a hunger for technology that helps our customers deliver projects, more, on time and on budget.
Fantastic. I certainly hope so too. Just one final question then, really, for you, Jim. Is there anything you can tell us about upcoming Autodesk products that no one else knows as yet, and you're just going to give us an exclusive bit of information on?
I don't think I'm allowed to do that. We're a public company, but what I can tell you, listen, what I can tell you, some of the things we've talked about here today, data is going to continue to be a very, very key initiative and focus for us. We want to make sure that project teams and the folks in the front office have access to information they need to drive better outcomes. So that is going to continue to be a focus for us. This idea of investing in machine learning and artificial intelligence, it's something we've done. We'll continue to do a lot more of that. We are going to make sure our customers get the most out of their data for sure. I think we'll continue to deliver on tools for the job site to make teams more successful on the job site, more productive on the job site. But you're also going to see us, up our investment in pre-construction. I believe, and we believe at Autodesk, that if we can drive a better pre-construction process where issues are identified before they're out in the field, we think that can drive great outcomes for the whole industry. The other thing you'll see us doing is really, really tightening the links between our design offerings from conceptual design through detailed design. So connecting our design tools even much more tightly than they are today with that pre-construction process. So you'll see that. And then on the back end, you'll see us continuing to work with our digital twin efforts here at Autodesk. We have a technology called Tandem. We want to make sure that Tandem has the latest and greatest information throughout the process, so that when that building or that asset is handed over to the owner, they have a digital representation that allows them to operate and manage the facility more successfully. So those are the big things. The other thing is, looking longer term, right? Is how can we help our customers get to that future of off-site construction, of what we call the industrialization of construction. We have an industry-leading portfolio in manufacturing, as you know, with Inventor and now with Fusion. So we want to make sure that we're bringing those technology closer to our design and construction technologies to help open the door, if you will, and accelerate this move to more off-site construction. So that's just a glimpse into where we're going. But hold on to your hats and buckle in. You're going to see some great things coming on the technology front. The other thing I would say, and it's important, because if all you do is deliver technology, but you don't, you're not there to help your customers embrace and get the most out of that technology, you're only delivering half of your commitment. So you'll see us absolutely continue to invest and work with our strategic channel partners to help our customers get the most out of their technology investment. We don't want to be a technology provider. We want to be a technology partner to our customers, and you do that by delivering on the technology, but also being there with them when they're working to deploy that technology.
Fantastic. Sounds like you'll be able to keep yourself busy till Christmas or so then.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
And then you can make plans for next year, yeah? After that.
Exactly.
Oh, nice. Thank you very much for joining us, Jim. It's been really good to chat with you. It's been good to hear your views. It's been very insightful, and no doubt our listeners will think so too.
Awesome. Well, Richard, thanks again for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation. I love the topic. I love these discussions. So thanks for having me, and have a great day.
Perfect. And thank everybody for listening too. Don't forget to follow us, subscribe to ensure you don't miss an episode of Smarter Construction. Stay tuned for our next few podcasts, where we'll look to cover additional new technology and process changes, as always. Thank you.